is if you read the Bible. That's it. The end. You don't get to hear from God or get a message from Him. All right, let's see. This is some of the highlighted stuff. Notice that wisdom is not cramming our heads with principles. It's developing a discerning heart. Is that what wisdom is? Is that what Proverbs is about? Okay. What made Solomon such a sharp guy was his wise and discerning heart. We don't seek wisdom because it's a good idea. We seek wisdom because we're dead if we don't. How's about because God tells us to, and it's pleasing to Him when we're obedient? Overall, here is the problem with this book and with books like this. And if you think that I am being nitpicky, then, well, I'll just have to go through the other 200 pages of this book. Approach every book that is not the Bible by asking yourself, how is it positioned? How is it positioned? What is the premise of this book? Is it to promote man, how we feel, how our experience should be with God, so that we get a fulfilled heart, so that we have purpose, so that we have territory expansion? Is that why it's being written? For us, in other words, man-centered, or is it written for God? Is it written so that God will be pleased, so that we can learn how to be obedient, so that we can learn what He expects of us, so that we can learn what His Word says, so that we can apply it, do what it says, and that He will be pleased with us? And if you ask yourself that question about every book that you read, boy, just like that, you are going to spot it in a second. Now, why can I condemn an entire book without having read the whole book? Well, some of you, I recognize, are not going to appreciate this little analogy, but I think it's valid nonetheless. I don't read Playboy. I don't read it because it is pornographic and the content is bad. Now, have I read an entire Playboy? No, I haven't. All I need to do is open it up and take a look at one picture, and I get the point. And you will find the same thing is true with books like this. I do not need to read an entire book to know that it's bad. Nor do you. And if you're thinking, well, you can't just talk about a great book like that. You can't talk about purpose-driven life after having just read a page. Oh, yeah, I can. Because it fails the foundation test. The foundation test is it written for my benefit or for God's? Simple as that. And if a book is written for my benefit, I don't want it. I don't need it. Because you know what? I don't want it to be about me. I want it to be about Him. And when a book is written for Him, about Him, so that He can be pleased, then I'm in. And then I'll spend some time reading it, and hopefully if there's not a lot of false teaching, I'm more than happy to consume it. But when a book reveals itself to be man-centered, the whole thing is garbage. This analogy will limp. I'm making it up as off the top of my head. But if you were building a house, and you put it on Play-Doh, well, the rest of the house might even look great. But the foundation is problematic, and the thing is going to go exactly. And it'll make that sound too. You got to have the footings solid and at the right angles. Otherwise, it's a skyscraper story. You know, go downtown Minneapolis. I don't think they've built a skyscraper in St. Paul since the World Trade Center, maybe, which is a whopping 40 stories. But we still love our downtown St. Paul. So you go into downtown, any downtown, and you watch them build one of these big buildings. And the amount of, you drive by it and you've been watching them survey. You know, they've got those things that you think they're cameras, but they're just so that they can see the line. They've got the strings running across. I don't want to use too many technical terms because I don't know them. And then you see them doing that, and you come back a week later, and they're still doing that. And a week later, and a week after that, and a month later, and they're still, why don't they get on it? It's because it's imperative that they get the foundation straight. Because if you're off just a piece of dust off, when a skyscraper, by the time you get up to the 100th story, the thing's going to fall over. And the same thing is true with a Christian book. If the foundation is off, if it's man-centered as opposed to God-centered, it's going to be loaded with nothing but problems. It's going to be rat poison. 99% good food. It's that 1% that's the problem, and it kills the rats, and it kills us. We'll continue with more of Waking the Dead. False Teacher Tuesday on Talk the Walk. Oh, I'm reading this book some more, and it's making me nutty. I'm on page 220. You must turn then back to myth. tomorrow and the next day and the next.
Miss who?
Myth.
Oh.
Myth. Seth Bareilles.
Sorry.
Read the Myth. Read the Battle of Helm's Deep. It's Chapter 7 of The Two Towers. Watch any of the trilogy of those films. And the opening of Gladiator. That's where we are now. Or if you can bear it, watch the Battle of Aya Drang Valley in We Were Soldiers. It is so deeply true that we must face what we must face, what we will face. Linger over the climax of The Prince of Egypt, where God goes to war against Egypt. Read Lewis's last installment of the Chronicles of Narnia. Okay, this man is getting too much of his theology from movie theaters. Has it ever occurred to you that God is such a loving and generous person because his heart is filled like a reservoir with joy? It's because his heart is brimming with good things and experiences that God is able to love and forgive and suffer so long for mankind. Is that true? What Bible verse jumps to mind for you? I'll tell you which one screams to mind for me. God proves his love for us in that while we were sinners, he died for us. Not because his heart was brimming with joy and good things and experiences that he's patient with us. God is patient with us because he desires all men to be saved and to come to the knowledge of the truth so that he can be glorified. Now, most people, if they were pagans, would call that selfish. Well, it's not selfish because God is not being selfish in desiring for himself to be glorified. How can that be? Well, if you were the ultimate, the ideal, the perfect, the lacking nothing being of the universe, who would you want to have be glorified? Some schlump? Some loser? You? Me? No, you'd want the most amazing thing to be glorified because it should be. And that thing happens to be God, so he desires for himself to be glorified. That's why he made the whole planet. It's not so that our hearts could be wakened from the dead. It's so that our hearts actually, in fact, the title of this book by John Eldredge, Waking the Dead, is exactly, it should be making your heart dead. Making your heart dead so that he can give you a new heart with new desires. Not for yourself, not to go strangle lions with your bare hands, but so that you can be conformed to the likeness and to the image of his Son, Jesus Christ. This book is fundamentally flawed, foundationally off, and we Christians shouldn't be reading it. It's called Waking the Dead by John Eldredge, and he is today's false teacher on False Teacher Tuesday on AM 980 KKMS More, Spirited Talk Radio. I will say this again. Does that mean you think that he's a heretic? Well, I'm telling you he's teaching heresy. Does that mean he's not saved? I don't know. I'm just telling you he's teaching heresy. I teach heresy. I don't know about it. And if I'm ever confronted with it and you can prove it from the Bible, I'll change it lickety-split. Every teacher has something. Unless Jesus were here teaching, unless you're just... The Word of God is the only thing that's perfect. We tend to mangle its interpretation sometime on the this and that. Not the big stuff, but on the different opinion on this and that, in-house debates on stuff. But this is a big nasty. Here's why. This is once again people thinking that Christianity is all about me. Oh, you know what? My heart hasn't been fulfilled. You know what? I haven't had the buzz from Christianity like I should. Let me give it a try from this perspective. And this book is littered with criticism of people who try to be obedient. Let me grab a page. I'm burning through the book right now. A lot of this stuff is even highlighted. Let's see. Hold on a second. Sorry, I was doing my airline pilot impression. These stories and images, writes Eldredge, are among the stories that God is giving to his people for this hour. They are gifts to us from his hand, clarity and strength for our hearts. Apparently we need them. They will do you a great deal of good. And then you will do a great good. Huh. So, by the way, what he was talking about there was not the Bible. He was talking about movies. How funny is that? You thought he was talking about the Bible. No. He was talking about the Gladiator movie with Russell Crowe. He was talking about the Two Towers. Isn't that the Chronicles of Narnia deal? That's what he was. That's Lord of the Rings. Sorry, I don't keep up with my pagan trilogy movie going. Sorry. It's just a little too dark for my tastes. I know it's supposed to have Christian undertones to that movie. I never heard anybody walk out of the theater and go, I was a pagan when I walked in. But the Christian overtones have converted me to the love of Jesus Christ. Didn't hear one of it. You see, that quote that I just read to you by John Eldredge